Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Saheem the Dream, here to make you scream, back again with another video. And let's talk about Bronson Reed, Braun Breaker, Seth Rollins, and Paul Heyman. Were they on the road to being named as one of the great factions, named among great factions in WWE history? Yeah. Were they on that road? I mean, when you think about the whole collective, you have it in your mind that this sounds like a good group, but there's something I see, um or I've seen since they actually assembled themselves, that became a potential problem, or started to become a problem, and it's something I could not wash out of my eyes. It became a stain in my eyes, and I just could not get rid of it every time I see these guys on the screen and how everything was unfolding before me. uh we got to talk about it. So let's talk about why the vision was doomed to fail. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, what? Whistling in the rain, thoughts that always bring. Talking all about the moves in our grooves. Wrestling thoughts and thoughts we never forgot. Slamming down the truth in our booth. Conversations in the air with flair and care. Legends of the past, memories that last. Wrestling thoughts and thoughts, connecting the dots. From high fire to submissions, we make our missions. From Raw to SmackDown, we wear the crown. NXT to AEW, we bring the view. Wrestling talks and thoughts in our slots. Fans united, always excited. Wrestling talks and thoughts in our spots.
So you have the collective of the guys that I named, and it seems like these names on paper would work well together, right? And with them being on the road to some level of success, Seth Rollins would eventually get injured because of his match against Cody Rhodes at Crown Jewel. On TV and in script, it was actually Braun Breaker who spared the hell out of him, knocked all the arrogant air out of his body, because Seth Rollins in the ring, talking that talk, talking smack, saying that he didn't need him, and him just being, just so full of himself, was like waving a pork chop in front of a pit bull and constantly taunting him. And eventually that pit bull snapped and snapped his arm off, or I should say snapped him in half. But that was the equivalent of what happened with Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, you know, knocking out Seth Rollins' lights, because they just felt like he was just full of himself. But we know, for storyline purposes, that's what the narrative is. But the true narrative is that he was sidelined with the shoulder injury, right? So, with that group being put together, did you guys really feel like the WWE had assembled something good in front of our eyes to really progress a better storyline, or just kind of push a better narrative for us? Do you guys really think that that whole group together really worked? I'm gonna tell you guys, they were really doomed to fail. They were really doomed to fail, and I'll tell you why. The number one reason why is because they were nothing more than a knockoff version of the Bloodline. Right? You had Seth Rollins, who sort of like was like the Roman Reigns. You had Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, the Bronze, were like the Usos, and then you had Paul Heyman, who is their, I don't know what the heck he calls him, but he's like their wise man, as parallel to the bloodline. So he served as their wise man. And it really looked like, you know, the Diet Coke version of the bloodline. Like, the bloodline is Coca-Cola and the vision is Diet Coke, the watered down version of the bloodline. And of course, it was a little bit different in regards to Seth Rollins having his flamboyant personality, Braun Breaker having his intense in ring appearance, and Bronson Reed being that powerhouse. So they definitely had a different dynamic to them as far as appearance and feel, but they definitely felt like a watered down version of the bloodline. And another reason why they were doomed was because the same storylines that they would have probably hashed out in some capacity with what happened with the bloodline on SmackDown is something similar as to what they were going to hash out on Monday Night Raw, right? And of course, we would eventually have someone who was like a major babyface take down Seth Rollins, or the dynamic could have been that it would have been Braun Breaker who would have been the one to take down Seth Rollins and take his world championship, right? Not knowing how long his title reign would have lasted, but we assumed that his title reign would have lasted some time, a lot longer than 60 days. I think he had the belt for about 60 days, or I believe it was 30. But nonetheless, it would have been a lot longer, and we would have been guessing who would be the guy to, dethrone Seth Rollins, right? I don't think WWE would have done the same thing like with Cody, or use like some other baby face to kind of go through like a whole, run that they had with Seth Rollins, that they had with Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. But I think they would have tried to do something a little bit different. But the reason why I could not necessarily see them as being something different or more of a success is because it just literally felt like WWE was giving us the same thing that they were giving us with the bloodline, right? Just a 4-man group, 3 are wrestlers, one's a manager. They're all together and align themselves in order to protect their, leader, Seth Rollins, and make sure he stays on top of the mountain, which most factions do, right? Not taking that away. So now we have something very similar to the bloodline, but except they're not related. They are all just a, collective of performers all together trying to achieve success. That's why I believe that the vision was pretty much doomed to fail, or just were doomed from the get-go. But there is a saving grace. And that saving grace, unfortunately, comes in the form of Seth Rollins being injured. Seth Rollins being pushed out of the picture now gives the vision a fresh appearance. Why? Because we don't have this guy who had some link or some history connected to Roman Reigns being the leader of a group and having his former manager being alongside him, which makes it look like he was trying to recreate the same success of his former partner. I mean, Seth Rollins being a person trying to recreate the same success of his former partner, right? So it was like, Seth Rollins was just copycatting, just remixing everything Roman Reigns did. Or not everything, but some of the things Roman Reigns did, right? So that's what it felt like. He wanted to add his little spice onto it. I'm going to do what you did, but I'm going to do it this kind of way. But with Seth Rollins being pushed out of the picture, now it looks like you have Paul Heyman being able to mentor these 2 young upstarts into success. And I think that is what's making the vision work right now. In my honest opinion, I think they should add Austin Theory to the mix, and it will be a lot better. And now you have these 3 young upstarts who Paul Heyman is going to make world champions or champions. And these guys are the fresh young collective who's going to take over WWE. That's my personal opinion of how I think they should book and build the vision going forward and push them all to success, to pretty much just the top of the card success. Because just imagine having Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, Austin Theory, Gunther as like our 4 new main stars at the top. Because of course you have guys like CM Punk, LA Knight, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, who are getting older. And then you see what's happening with Seth Rollins in age, because he literally just came back off an injury. Now he's re-injured, has to take another sabbatical, and his body is wearing down. So those are things that we need to be considerate about, because when we have our main stars who are wrestling and performing multiple nights and day in and day out, these injuries or these bumps that they definitely take a toll on them. So sometimes they can get injuries that they can wrestle through, and then sometimes they get injuries that need surgery, right? And it wears on their body. So when you have fresh young talent that's coming up through the roster, these guys can now fill in those shoes or fill in those holes where the big talent that we had these hopes and expectations for, they can now fill their spot and fill that place in for them. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that the vision looks a bit better without Seth Rollins being in the picture? Do you guys think that the vision really needs Seth Rollins? Do you guys like the vision with Seth Rollins? Because in my honest opinion, I like the vision without Seth Rollins. I think it looks fresh, it looks new. It reminds me sort of Legacy. Uh, if Legacy had a manager, but you have somebody like Paul Heyman, who is a guy who's known to be next to top talent, but also that guy who knows how to kind of help mold this person's personality to be the guy that they need to be on screen. And I think Austin Theory would definitely benefit from somebody like Paul Heyman. Austin Theory's great on the mic. He's great in the ring. You know, he kind of really doesn't really need a lot of coaching as far as when it comes to cutting promos. Neither does Braun Breaker, neither does Bronson Reed. Like, these guys are really good. But just to have Austin Theory a part of that pack would definitely solidify the vision as being like a fresh group. I think it would add like a fresh kick to it. It's good now with Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker, but just to add Austin Theory to the mix would kind of just like be, you know, that fresh take on everything, like I said before. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you guys think that the vision really had something with Seth Rollins being there? Did you guys think that the vision was a knockoff version of the Bloodline? Did you guys really feel like the vision really gave us something new and something fresh with just them being a new collective? I mean, because honestly, I could not stop seeing Roman Reigns on Seth Rollins. I could not stop seeing Roman Reigns, you know, like being the guy who was overshadowing Seth, because it literally felt like the same thing. It literally felt like the same thing. Only difference is that they all didn't have gold, except for Seth, you know, at the end of, not the end, but well, at the end of his, you know, participation in the group, right? Until he had to get kicked out, right? So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you think that the vision was headed to more success, or do you guys feel like they were just going to be another knockoff version of the Bloodline, just kind of rehashing similar storylines? Of course, we may see some similarities, but kind of giving us the same feel as what we had with the Bloodline. Because I was getting Bloodline vibes the whole time I was watching the vision on screen, and I couldn't see anything different other than just, you know, feeling like this great vibe of nostalgia. But if you guys see something different, let me know. But as far as Paul Heyman being a guy mentoring younger talent, I think it's a better look. I think it's even cooler. I think it even adds a lot more legitimacy to Paul Heyman being that guy who can see great talent, because Paul Heyman always aligned himself with pre-established talent, except for when you look at Brock Lesnar and you look at Curtis Axel, right? He became an Intercontinental Champion, and then, but anyway, he just became another jobber. But Paul Heyman always aligned himself with great talent, and you know, Paul Heyman had some failed talent like Curtis Axel, like Cesaro, but he also had some successful talent. His first successful talent he had was Brock Lesnar, and then he has CM Punk, then he had Roman Reigns, and now he has Seth Rollins in his corner, but Seth Rollins is now out of the picture. So, of course, no more Seth Rollins. So now he has Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker, which I think is a lot better, because the last time we seen Paul Heyman align himself with an upstart talent was Cesaro. So now we get to see him align himself with some good upstart talent who is getting that push. And I think this will be really cool, because we need young and fresh talent to be showcased in a great way. Whereas we have the older guys kind of like not on their last leg, but they're in that place of potentially phasing out, right? Not saying that they'll be phasing out like in the next 2 or 3 years. I'm quite sure that CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, LA Knight, Roman Reigns has some years on them, maybe like 5 or 6, 7 years, of course, maybe even 10. Yeah, you know, but these guys will get injured. These guys will get hurt, as I said before. But anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. If you guys get an opportunity, check out, does WWE have a booking problem? I will post it right here at the end of the video. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.